the best instructors for real technique that works are basically people that have been involved in roles of dealing with violence and confrontation. But those people often don't have the best character. So when you want to learn about character building and sort of being a good person in society, that tends to come from people who have done a very good job of avoiding violent confrontation throughout their lives. So both types have studied martial arts for a long time, but you tend to get, the types that are very good at avoiding violent confrontation, and those who frankly have in some way have gone to seek it out in order to test themselves or in order to to be involved in violence, right? And they're two very different animals. And very rarely do you meet someone that does both. But that's why it comes back to the point I made earlier about, for every person that you look to as a sensei, someone that's ahead of you in the path, you need to understand that you're going to get some things from them, and they're going to, in some ways, they're not going to give you everything that you think you want, right? So.
Something which came to mind while you were speaking about that was the Chris Wilson's, I believe, interview with Sensei Doug Perry. Who's a wonderful practitioner, and he talked a lot. He reflected on, as a military man who has seen action, as is his son, Colonel Perry, there on the island as we speak. He said the juxtaposition is that whilst he loves combat, he hates war, and it seems to some people, I suppose, that would seem sort of a weird kind of a concept. And if you do get an opportunity to check that out, by the way, do go and look at Sensei Doug Perry's interview. I've revisited it.
Yeah, that's a wonderful interview. We were so lucky to get that time with him.
Oh no, he's fantastic. It was honestly one of those things where I was just going, I listened to it quite a bit as I train. Some fantastic stuff, just to not necessarily a plug, but certainly a moment of appreciation for all the work that you and Chris have done on that, and it's been fantastic. Do you think, given where karate is kind of, this whole appellation that people put in front of the karate, combat karate or street karate, to me, I guess it seems like there's this focus on the violence and the street application, and if you're listening to this, I am holding my fingers up and doing quotations, street application. That sort of seems to, there's an idea that karate can't be practical, and also that karate is really just about fighting. And you've spoken quite a bit about that. With that in mind, how do you apply karate in your own life? How do you use it? And I'm not talking about in the dojo, and I'm not talking about in combat. How do you apply that to just, I guess, your everyday?
Yeah, well, the everyday benefit of karate for me is sort of mental fortitude, the ability to maintain a positive attitude. Because karate training, physical training, it's a habit. And it's an activity which helps you to kind of put other things in context. So, it's a good workout. It's going to get, good chemicals flowing through your body. That's going to help you to feel good. But also, with the traditional karate, the sort of the mental training that you do sort of visualization that you do, I think helps you to put other worries in context. That's certainly how I found it anyway, and how I continue to find it. And it gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of focus as well. You know, gives you sort of a stability in your life, and something that you can own and develop, something that you can feel a sense of satisfaction about, and a sense of progress on. So for all those reasons, it helps to develop your sense of character and sort of give you a feeling of having a center. So even when other parts of your life are difficult, it's something you can come back to, and it gives you sort of an anchor. It gives you a sense of something you can work on, you can put effort into, and you can gain reward from. And then also that often when we're training with other people, and you get that sense of working with like-minded people. So you get the reassurance of that this is a worthwhile thing, and other people are interested in it too. So for all those reasons, it's beneficial. I mean, where I am now, my situation, I'm highly unlikely to actually have to violently defend myself on a daily basis. But you always maintain the possibility that might happen, right? I'm lucky, like I said earlier on, as you move through life, hopefully the thing you figure out is the most important is that you engineer the situation around you to de-risk it and make your life happier. If you haven't managed to do that, I would say you're either completely failing in your understanding of martial arts practice, or you are just that kind of person that's actively seeking out conflict. And either way, you can sort of see that as a failure. But I guess the other thing with karate practice, as you progress along the path, is that you are going to end up with people who are kind of behind you on the path as well. So it's sort of difficult as you progress along not to become somebody's sensei. So even if you don't open a dojo and and want to stand up in front of people as a teacher, sensei is the idea that you're just further along the path than other people, and that's inevitable. So you then have the opportunity, sometimes almost the obligation in some ways, to pass on your experience to those who are junior to you in following a similar path. So those are all, I think, and that's also good for you, right? They say that when you teach, you learn again, and that's definitely true. But also, I think, again, it's good for you. It gives you a sense of purpose, a sense of achievement, a sense of satisfaction, and all of those things are positive for us. So yeah, I think those are the sort of the benefits that I derive from martial arts practice now.
There's some people out there who are really utilizing karate as a tool for well-being, which is which is not the polite way, but it's become, I guess, the more commonly used term that takes in mental, physical, and even spiritual health, I guess. So people, with issues of depression and anxiety, I know there's a lot of people using it in that realm as well to fight a different kind of fight, I guess.
Yeah.
What I want to do is, if I can, I'm just want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about a little bit about, I guess, the physical side of your karate and the fact that you do fight every day. If you haven't done at least 3 death fights, you're like, it hasn't been a day, So I want to touch on a couple of things if I can. One, I saw this really wonderful. I watched Amazon Prime I guess last week, and you were featured prominently as a karate practitioner on a wonderful series there, the name of which actually escapes me, and I'll look that up and put that in the liners. But you talked a lot about and reflected a lot while you were being interviewed on karate being something in the style of karate that you're doing, and of course you're training with Arakake Toshimitsu Sensei, who obviously you hold in high regard. And I was really intrigued because as a Goju practitioner, we do a kote kitai and all those sort of things, and sanchin and slapping the hell out of each other. I have my thoughts on that, which we'll share offline. It's all good. It's all good. Yay.
Yeah.
But, it was intriguing when you talked about, as part of our training and the style that you do, that it's really about finding ways to move efficiently and well and not to brutalize our bodies so that we can't live healthy lives. Can you kind of, I'm completely paraphrasing and getting it wrong. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, if we think about it, and this is the sort of thing that we say in karate, but sometimes then don't actually follow through it on the same principle, is that, we pursue karate for self-protection, yeah? But the reality is it's not just self-defense, it's also health defense. So, if you...
Hold on. Trademark. Masato Dojo, trademark.
I'm not going to claim that I've come up with that originally, but recently I've been thinking a lot about that as a useful way to think about, what are your objectives and what is your understanding of your martial arts practice, right? But for everybody, there's elements of both. Now, I think, at some point, self-defense may be for you the main thing, but you're going to realize at some point that if you neglect your health, that's actually going to chop the legs out from under anything. Yeah. If you don't look after yourself, you can't defend yourself. Flip side is if you lose all focus on self-defense within your martial arts practice, then again it becomes very unbalanced, and again you can end up in a territory where you lose authenticity, or you lose sort of the core of it, which is that it is a martial art which is based on protecting yourself during violent conflict. So you've got, you need those both elements, right? Self-defense and health defense. And I think that in Okinawa, so how did Okinawa end up with such a rich karate and kobudo tradition? You have to ask yourself that, right? Because today it's a very, very peaceful place. And peaceful places don't generate martial arts. They don't need to, right? But how do you get to a peaceful society? I think perhaps you have to go through a similar process that an individual has to go through, which is you have to go through that violent, chaotic, risky, risk-taking phase, which is also extremely creative, in order to then get to the point where you can then progress to building a more balanced, peaceful existence. And in a way, you could look at like the history of Okinawa almost as a way that perhaps we develop as people too, which is that, it used to be a very kind of open, international, chaotic, violent crossroads where, these skills were very much required in order to protect people's lives and to protect the industry of the place. And that is what has generated this tradition which we get to inherit, which we get to benefit from, which is the distillation of that, the skills which were passed down into a more peaceful society. So the balance changed, from primarily self-defense to now the balance is, if we're honest, in Okinawa, the balance now primarily is on health defense. And that's in line with the development of society here, which is, people live in a safer place, they live longer, and they live better lives. So that's... Now, within that context, you can obviously find a spectrum. You can find people that are really hardcore, focused just on self-defense, training very hard, fighting regularly, both in competitive context and otherwise, that sort of thing. You can find those people, of course, and they have a role. But Okinawa is not a violent society today. It's one of the most peaceful places you can visit in the world, I'm pretty sure. So of course then martial arts is going to evolve in the context of that society.
Excellent points. That is some real food for thought too, because I mean, as you said, why, if a place is so peaceful, why would it have need of martial arts? And yet one of the things which is so incredible about Okinawa and Japan in general is that a lot of the traditions, martial arts or otherwise, are so intact, are so viable, and I guess when I think about Okinawa, it's important to remember that it wasn't that long ago that it was involved in a major world war.
Yeah.
That it has had a history of conflict. The people have had to grow resilience that a lot of the countries probably couldn't imagine. After I'm thinking, of course, after the Second World War, I mean, the devastation and the loss of life, the tragic loss of life that occurred on Okinawa.
Yeah.
As much as, I guess, someone who is not from Okinawa, I guess I certainly have respect for it, but I couldn't even imagine it, living comfortably in New Zealand. So you either grow calluses and become so hard that you become impenetrable, or you embrace life in a way that means that your citizens are going to live for a lot longer, a higher quality of life. I think that's a really inspiring thing to me about Okinawa, is people, quite routinely live to be over 100 years old. I mean, for Polynesian people in New Zealand, especially amongst the males, we're considered elderly if we hit 60, if we hit 64. So we've got a bit of work to do. I also think that being a Pacific island too, warmer climes do tend to create warmer people, dare I say it. Although
there's no question of that. Well, I mean, I think Okinawa right now is in many ways in a golden age, right? So Okinawans today look back to the Ryukyu Kingdom as sort of the golden age of Okinawa, right? The time when Okinawa emerged as its own country, and for a time, did well because it was trading and it was learning from these other cultures around it, and profited. But as you say, it also then had some really, really hard times. And the Second World War was, without question, the most devastating event in Okinawan history. An event which remains in living memory, because there are people here very much still alive and well who literally experienced that as young people. So everything goes in cycles, right? History teaches us that. And I think that while, without doubt, we are enjoying a golden age, right? And in fact, around the world, right, we're enjoying a golden age. The world is a more peaceful place now than it's ever been. There are more people eating well and with decent shelter in the world today than there's ever been, right? No question, we're going through an unprecedented period of growth and peace, even with Corona and everything else dropping in. We're going through a golden age, but history teaches us that things move in cycles. And I guess one of the things about martial arts practice is that it offers us some hope or some ability to sort of try to ready ourselves for maybe harder times ahead. We don't know. Maybe they'll come, maybe they won't, right? Things are changing so fast and we're developing so fast as a species that, maybe, the future is not going to be a replay of history. But I think if we take nothing else from martial arts practice other than kind of a sense of purpose and a sense of strength of character, then then it's still a very, very valuable thing to do, right?
It's strange when you look at it in the hard light of day, right? We get into canvas pajamas that don't tie up very well, that we're constantly adjusting.
Yeah.
We wear belts without buckles. We train in these weird looking dances. We learn all these skills, for want of a better word, to injure, to incapacitate, in the worst case scenario, take life, and yet we don't ever want to be able to use some of those things. When I watch a lot of documentaries on Okinawa and senior martial artists in general, not just on Okinawa, they talk about if you live a life where you've never had to utilize your skill, you've actually understood the point. And I think it is hard, especially given the last Olympics, where there was, of course, that infamous bout in which the gentleman who got knocked out was the one who won the gold medal. Now that's a whole nother issue, as you well know. But I think the thing which was difficult for me personally, and I sort of was a little bit of a difficult issue to swallow, was that karate got onto an international stage, and I think for Joe public, they didn't really realize what they were seeing, and they didn't really realize the breadth of what karate actually is. So in some ways it was really, really cool. In other ways it was really, really difficult. I mean, you were on literal ground zero, with Okinawa winning, a great number of medaling, a great number of times in that. Whether or not karate gets into the Olympics again, I think it was a fitting that so many Okinawans did so well. But what was your general impressions, man? And I know I'm not asking you to be contentious either. I'm not trying to put you in the hot seat, but here we are.
Well, I mean,